Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission of November 20th, 2024. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, are available online or at the Planning Department, room 213. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. Out of courtesy to those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cell phones may not be used in the chamber during any portion of today's meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action on all of today's items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held October 16th, 2024.
So moved, Campbell.
Second, Joy.
Yes.
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yo.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
We will now proceed with today's agenda. The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Clara to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Clara, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, I will note that items 1.1A, annexation 24010, and 1.1B, change of zone 17030F, will be removed from today's consent agenda for request for a 2-week deferral. Item 1.2, change of zone 05061G to amend the Southwest Village Planned Unit Development regarding phasing, access, and parking layout with waivers on property generally located at 7055 South First Street. Item 1.4, miscellaneous 24007, to vacate a final plat on property generally located at 2100 Magnum Circle, 5 South Coddington Avenue.
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting to be disclosed?
No.
If there's anyone here wishing to speak on these consent agenda items, please stand and state your name.
We do not see anyone here that would like to speak on the consent agenda.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second, Joy.
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will now proceed with, we do not going to do that yet. I was like, we're not going to. I will now ask Clara to call request for deferral.
I will note that a staff memo dated today, November 20th, identifying revisions to the staff report and the summary of requests should have been received to members today. Annexation 24010 to annex approximately 45 acres on property and a half-mile north of Lincoln Street. 1.1B, change of zone 17030F from AG Agricultural District to R3 Residential Planned Development and associated
Move to approve to defer till December 10th, 4th.
Second, Joy.
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on those applications today? All right, now we will proceed to public hearing. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff person should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. Is that better? Turn on my camp counselor voice. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members or included as part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The clerk will use the light system to help aid your timing for your testimony, and the lights will appear on the monitors provided. The clerk will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. The red light indicates that your 5 minutes has expired, and once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate that your time is up. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or to continue the public hearing. Clara, please call the first public hearing item.
Item 4.1, Text Amendment 24014 to amend the Lincoln Municipal Code 27.69.090 to clarify the language defining the sign areas for places of religious assembly, schools, and community playhouses in residential zoning districts.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. This item before you here is actually not that controversial an item. Usually we would have it on consent. But we did want to take this opportunity to welcome Jacob Schlange, who's our new planner covering the southeast part of Lincoln, and give him a little experience with our audio equipment here and visual equipment. So perfectly timed for that as well. But I'll go ahead and have Jacob introduce himself a little bit as well. But we're very glad to have him here with the Planning Department.
Great, thank you.
Yes,
Welcome.
Jacob Schlange, Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. As Steve said, my name's Jacob. I'll be the new planner for the southeast portion of Lincoln. Just a little bit about myself briefly. For about the last 10 years, I've been working at UNL, most of that time as the assistant director of the University Honors Program. During that time, though, I got my master's in community and regional planning from the College of Architecture at UNL. And I was looking to make a change to get into some more practical planning work. So that's why I'm here. So as we said, this is a text amendment revising section 276990 for signs for places of religious assembly, schools, and community playhouses, and specifically for residential zoning districts. The reason for this amendment is that currently this section includes a reference to supporting structures for signs, which has allowed an interpretation that support structures should be included when calculating sign area specifically for places of religious assembly, schools, and community playhouses. However, this is the only place in the code where support structure is referenced in this manner in terms of calculating sign area. And in fact, there is an entire section of the code that details how sign area should be calculated. So as a result, sign area is presently being calculated differently for these specific use types than it is for all other types, for all other types of signs. The applicant, Nolan Graham, represents Nebraska Sign, and he brought this issue to the Planning Department after applying for a permit for a church sign, which was denied by Building and Safety based on this section of code, on the grounds that the proposed sign, when considered with the supporting structure, exceeded the allowable sign area. So amending this text will make sure that sign area is calculated uniformly for all different use types, not differently for these specific 3 types of uses.
Okay. All right. Yes, Dick.
Jacob, will this allow digital electronic signs in these areas? Because I know the Playhouse has one, but I know a church that has been denied one. So would this allow that to happen then?
So this particular amendment is not changing the types of signs that are allowed. There are provisions for when a digital illuminated sign could be allowed and when it would not be allowed, but this amendment doesn't affect
But
that.
that's a totally separate issue.
Totally separate issue. This is just about how are we calculating the area of the sign.
Got it. Thank you.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I read through this a couple of times, and would this say a structure? Could you have a 30-foot structure and then a sign on top of it, or is it still regulated?
So this particular section pertaining to the places of religious assembly, schools, and community playhouses already has a height limit of 6 feet. So that's not going to be changing with this text amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Additional questions right now? All right, thank you very much. Are you Mr. Graham? Yes, we'll now take testimony from the applicant.
Good afternoon. Nolan Graham with Nebraska Sign, 1140 North 21st Street. As Jacob eloquently put it, that's pretty much all the details of this. There is some interpretation specifically in this section of the code that's all of a sudden causing some problems with some church signs. To answer your question, it is not going to change really any of the design of what you've seen at churches throughout Lincoln. This is a problem that's come up just in the last year or so, where the interpretation is a little bit fuzzy because of the language that's specific to this code section, but not to any of the other ones pertaining to signs. So really what it is actually the opposite of changing it. It's churches are coming to us and saying, we're getting denied for this sign, but if we go next door to this church, they have that exact size. And so it's trying to get back to the level playing field of the interpretation that was had years ago, and kind of updating the wording to match. And as Jacob put it as well, there are, like your question with digital signs, there are separate sections of the code pertaining to religious assembly. That's more to do with setbacks and footage off of abutting properties, things like that. So that potentially is a reason. I don't know what church you're talking about, but that's more likely what it was rather than the actual sign code itself. It was something with an abutting property.
Well, it's in a residential district.
Yep.
And that, I think, prohibited them from.
Sure, yeah, so
In that.
2769090, that is for places of religious assembly within residential districts. So it would be covered within that section of code, and then it's most likely, I don't recall off the top of my head, it's like 150 feet or 100 feet or so from an abutting property. So if some property lines are just too close, then there's no way you can get that far away, so likely that.
Can you maybe go into a little more detail about the sign that was denied that precipitated this change?
Sure, yeah. So I can actually pull up and I believe you guys all have a copy of the code change that we're recommending. I can give you a quick synopsis here of reading through the current code. So eliminating some of the first sentences here that don't matter. Playhouses are permitted one on-premise internally illuminated freestanding sign on each street frontage not exceeding 50 square feet of area or 6 feet in height for each bulletin board or sign and its supporting structure, and one on-premise wall sign. So the section of the code that's really affecting us is those three words and its supporting structure. So what's the example here? So if you continue on with that code, they're allowed 32 square feet of illuminated sign area. Because of that statement and its supporting structure, that's now being interpreted as they get 32 square feet, including the supporting structure and the sign itself. So in the example of we've got, say, a digital sign that's 24 square feet with a little header on top that says church. If that's 32 square feet, you would then not be allowed to put a brick base on it or put any sort of foundation or something that gets that up off the ground. The interpretation is being read as if you want 32 square feet of area, that 32 square foot rectangle has to just sit on the ground, and that's what it is. So like Jacob mentioned, the 6 foot height is not in question. I think that fits very well with residential signs for churches and schools. It's really just that supporting structure that's saying you know, for the city of Lincoln's sake, you can either put this on a pole that's 4 inches wide and we'll take the area of that 4 inches, or we can make this look good, put it on a brick base that matches the building and everything else, but not have that count towards the sign area.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, that was very helpful. Are there additional questions for Mr. Graham? Okay, thank you very much. All right, it doesn't appear that there's anyone here to testify, but I will ask, just in case somebody's in the hallway, if there's anyone here to testify on this text amendment, either in support, in a neutral position, or in opposition. Hi, are you here to testify on the signage? Okay.
Timing was amazing.
I was like, wow.
You're in the hall.
She was in the hall. All right.
I just heard something and thought I'd come in.
Are there any additional questions for staff? All right, I don't believe we need applicant rebuttal. At this point, we will.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Joy?
Can you call for the close the public hearing, please?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
And I would move that we approve text amendment 24014.
Second, Joy?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Motion passed.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so.
I would move that we close the meeting.
Second, Joy?
Campbell,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
We are adjourned.